Take a look at this room.
It looks like the perfect Victorian bedroom, doesn't it?
It's elegant, it's expensive, and for its time, it was the height of fashion.
But in reality, this room is a death trap, a beautifully decorated gas chamber.
The story behind it is one of beauty, obsession, and a deadly secret hiding in plain sight. This is the story of the color that killed. In the mid-1800s, the wealthy were absolutely obsessed with a new color. It was vibrant, it was electric, and it was called Scheele's green. They adored it. They loved it so much, they draped their bodies in it, wearing stunning green gowns to lavish balls. They painted their children's toys with it, believing its cheerful hue would bring joy. And most dangerously, they covered the very walls of their homes with it, from the drawing room to the bedroom. What they didn't realize, what they couldn't possibly fathom, was that their favorite color was made of pure arsenic. The killer wasn't some shadowy figure lurking in the foggy streets of London. It was painted on their walls, hanging in their closets, and even sitting on their dinner tables. To understand this madness, you have to picture London in the 19th century. This wasn't the vibrant metropolis we know today. It was a city of gray. Gray fog, a constant blanket from the coal-fired factories, mingled with the gray brick of the endless buildings. Color was a luxury, a desperate escape from the monotonous industrial haze. The aristocracy, the high society of the time, craved an escape. They wanted to bring the vibrancy of nature indoors, to fill their stuffy, formal homes with the life and color of a spring meadow. And then, a Swedish chemist named Carl Wilhelm Scheele gave them exactly what they wanted. In 1775, he invented a new pigment. Unlike previous greens, which were often dull and faded quickly, Scheele's creation was revolutionary. It was a brilliant, stable shade of emerald that seemed to glow from within. It was also surprisingly cheap to produce, making it widely accessible. There was just one tiny problem. Its chemical name was copper arsenic. Yes, arsenic. The same poison used in rat killer and featured in countless murder mysteries. But at the time, the focus wasn't on the ingredients, it was on the incredible result. The color was an instant sensation. Suddenly, this arsenic green, also known as Paris green, was everywhere. It wasn't just on the dresses of high society ladies. It was printed on candy wrappers. It was used to color candles that, when burned, released toxic smoke. It was painted onto the delicate leaves of children's toys, which, as you can imagine, often ended up in their mouths. It was used by confectioners to dye sweets, turning them a tempting shade of green. And it was used to color the fake flowers and headdresses that were all the rage, adorning the hair and homes of the fashionable. But by far, its most dangerous application was in wallpaper. Entire rooms in the finest homes across England and Europe were covered in this beautiful, toxic green. The danger of arsenic, especially in this form, is that it doesn't stay put. It's a flaky, dusty compound. In the damp, humid English weather, the green wallpaper would begin to break down. It would release microscopic arsenic-laden dust particles into the air. With every breath, the residents were inhaling poison. The glue used for the wallpaper, often a flour and water paste, would also grow mold in the damp conditions. This mold would metabolize the arsenic pigment, releasing a toxic gas called arsine, one of the most poisonous compounds of arsenic. People were literally living, breathing, and sleeping in a toxic cloud. The symptoms were slow and insidious. They started with headaches, fatigue, and stomach cramps. Doctors often misdiagnosed these as common ailments, never suspecting the home itself was the culprit. As the poisoning progressed, skin lesions, nausea, and hair loss would follow. People were getting sick and dying, and for a long time, no one made the connection. They just knew that moving into a newly decorated green room often coincided with a mysterious decline in health. One of the most famous potential victims of this deadly decor might have been Napoleon Bonaparte himself. After his defeat at Waterloo, he was exiled to the remote island of St. Helena. He spent his final days in a house where his favorite room, the drawing room where he spent most of his time, was decorated with ... You guessed it, bright green wallpaper. For centuries, the cause of his death was debated. Was it stomach cancer? Was he poisoned by his enemies? Well, when modern scientists tested samples of his hair, they found it was riddled with high levels of arsenic. Samples of the wallpaper from his Longwood House residence also tested positive for arsenic. It is entirely possible that the very walls of his prison slowly poisoned the former emperor to death. But the real, heartbreaking tragedy wasn't the emperors or the queens. It was the workers, the people who had no choice but to handle this poison every single day. The most devastating accounts come from the young women and girls who work in factories making artificial flowers. Their job was to dust the fabric leaves with the vibrant green powder. They worked in poorly ventilated rooms, their hands, faces, and clothes constantly covered in arsenic dust. They were known as the Arsenic Girls. The poison invaded their bodies with horrific consequences. They suffered from sores, convulsions, and a terrifying array of symptoms. Accounts from the time describe them vomiting green bile. Their fingernails, and even the whites of their eyes, would turn a ghastly shade of green as the copper arsenite built up in their systems. The poison literally consumed them from the inside out. Many died agonizing deaths in their late teens or early 20s. Their youth and health sacrificed for a fashion trend. Doctors who treated them were horrified, noting how the poison seemed to stain their very being. You might think that once the link between the green pigment and these horrific deaths was established, people would stop using it immediately. But they didn't. The denial was staggering. Just like with other historical poisons like lead in makeup, the wealthy and fashionable refused to believe that something so beautiful, so chic, could be so deadly. The manufacturers had a vested interest in keeping the truth quiet. They launched campaigns to discredit the scientists and doctors who were raising the alarm, calling them fearmongers. They published pamphlets claiming the color was perfectly safe. Even Queen Victoria, the trendsetter of the era, was caught up in the craze. She famously had a green room in Buckingham Palace. The story goes that she only ordered the wallpaper to be torn down after a visiting dignitary staying in the room became violently ill. It took events like this, direct and undeniable, for the upper classes to start taking the threat seriously. For a long time, the desire for status and beauty simply outweighed the warnings of science. Eventually, the evidence became too overwhelming to ignore. Sensational newspaper articles, public outcry, and new medical studies finally forced a change. Dr. William Hines, a British physician, was a key figure who tirelessly campaigned against the use of arsenic in consumer goods. He published papers and gave lectures, presenting undeniable proof of the pigment's toxicity. Gradually, new laws were passed in the late 19th and early 20th centuries to regulate the use of arsenic in wallpapers, paints, and fabrics. Safer, non-toxic green pigments were developed, and the deadly Scheele's green, along with its cousin Paris green, slowly faded into history. Today, these arsenic wallpapers are collector's items, handled with extreme care by museum curators in gloves and masks. They serve as a haunting and beautiful reminder of a time when aesthetics quite literally killed. The story of Scheele's green is a powerful cautionary tale. It shows how a desire for status, beauty, and the next big thing can blind us to obvious dangers. It reminds us that sometimes the most beautiful things in life can hide the deadliest secrets, and the things we chase to perfect our world can sometimes be the very things that destroy us. Thank you so much for watching. What do you think is a modern-day equivalent of this deadly trend? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this story as fascinating as I did, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more diaries into the hidden histories that shape our world. See you next time.